Today we are going to be talking about investments. So an investment is an item acquired with the goal of generating income. So for example, you're going to invest your money in something with the hopes of getting interest back and earning money on that. So some examples of investments you may have heard of would be stocks, bonds, real estate. So you may buy a building and rent it out, or it's just starting your own business. Those are all considered investments. So individuals invest money into these examples in the hopes of earning money. Okay, so we're still going to use our interest formula because that interest is ultimately the money that we are taking home with us. Okay, so first, I just want to make sure we are all still doing okay with our interest formula, which is I equals PRT. Okay, so for this first problem, we are given that the interest is $2,160. The principal is $6,000. Our rate is 8%, which is 0.08. And we are trying to find T. So I would like you to go through and solve for T. All right, so for that one, you should have gotten 4.5 years. All right, let's try one more. Again, we're going to use I equals PRT, and I'd like you to set up this equation and solve. So for this one, we were missing the principal. So check your work with mine and see how you did. Tricky parts, make sure that when it gives you months, you always have to put it in terms of years. So that's why that was 9 out of 12 months. And then I did some algebra to get $1,200. All right, so now we're going to step it up a notch. And we are looking at an instance where we know the interest rate, or we know the interest that we get. And we're investing money at 2 different interest rates, okay? But we don't know how much to invest in each one, okay? So the best way to do this is to use a table like this one. And notice we still have our P, our R, our T, and that is going to be equal to I, the interest. Okay, so this is how this works. Mary invested $12,000. Part of it was at a 12% annual interest rate, and the rest was at a 13.25 annual interest rate. Her total interest for the year was $1,540. How much was invested at each rate? Okay, so we have 2 different interest rates. So that's going to go under our R. The first one is 12%, so that's going to be 0.12. And the second one is 13.25%, so 0.1325. Okay, now both of these were for 1 year. So both of our times are 1. Okay, so far not so bad. Now principal, remember, is the amount of money invested. I don't know how much money was invested in each of these. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the top one X. Okay, I don't know how much I'm investing at 12%, so I'm going to call that X. Now, what I do know is that I invested $12,000. Remember, the principal is the amount invested, so the total amount invested is $12,000. X of it went into 12%. The rest of it has to go in the 13.25%. So I'm going to take $12,000 and subtract however much I already invested. And again, I don't know what that number is, so I'm just going to call it X. Okay. Now, just to show you why that works, I know that P, you don't have to write this down, is equal to 12,000. So if I take the amount that I invested at 12% plus the amount that I invested at 13.25%, those cancel and I'm left with my original 12,000. Okay, so that's why we set that part up that way. All right, now we're going to do this just like we did before, right? I equals PRT. So to find I, I'm going to take my principal times my rate times my time, and I'm going to multiply it straight across, and I get 0.12x. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom row, okay? Principal times the rate times the time. So for this one, I'm going to write it like this, 0.1325 times 12,000 minus x. Okay, so all we did there was I equals PRT. Now there's one more piece of important information here, and that is that her total interest for the year was 1,540. So my two interests have to equal $1,540. So guess what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my first one, 0.12x, add my second interest amount, 0.1325 times 12,000 minus x, and set that equal to our total interest, which was 1,540. Okay, and then I'm going to do some algebra to solve. So first thing I'm going to do is use the distributive property here. So I have 0.12x plus 0.1325 times 12,000 is 1,590 minus 0.1325x. And that's going to be equal to 1,540. Okay, let's combine like terms here. 0.12x minus 0.1325x. So type that in your calculator. And I got that to be negative 0.0125x plus 1,590 equals 1,540. All right, so we're just doing some algebra. Subtract the 1,590, and I get negative 0.0125x is equal to negative 50. Last step, divide by negative 0.0125. And I get x equals 4,000. Okay, so now let's interpret that answer, because remember what it asks. How much is invested at each rate? Okay, well, x is my 12% rate. So I'm going to say I would invest $4,000 at 12%. And then here, I'm going to do 12,000 minus 4,000, because that's my x. And I'm going to invest $8,000 at 13.25%. Okay, so kind of a lot going in there. Do your best to follow the steps. Okay, and we'll do another example to practice this. All right, Sally invested some money in bonds at 6% interest and an amount 8,000 less than that in stocks at 5% interest. Her total interest for the year was $1,690. How much money did she invest at 5%? All right, so we have two different interest rates. Let's see, our first one is 6% interest. And our second one is 5% interest. All right, the year, each of these are 1 year. And then our principal seems to be the one that might be a little bit tricky to figure out. So let's see. She invested some money at 6%. We don't know how much, so we're going to say X. And then it says she invested an amount $8,000 less than that at 5%. So whatever number she invested at 6%, she invested $8,000 less than that at 5%. Okay, now remember to get my interest down here, I am just doing P times R times T. So my top one, I get 0.06x. And then same thing on the bottom, P times R times T. So 0.05 times x minus 8,000. Okay, and then our other big piece of information is that her total interest was $1,690. So just like before, I'm going to add those two things together and set them equal to $1,690. All right, now we're going to do some algebra. The first thing I'm going to do is distribute the 0.05. So 0.05 times 8,000 is 400. And that's going to equal to 1,690. Let's combine like terms. Here's an x and here's an x. So we're going to go ahead and add those together, and I get 0.11x minus 400 equals 1,690. Add 400 to both sides. And I get 0.11x is equal to 2,090. And then I'm going to divide by 0.11. And I get x is equal to 19,000. Okay? Now, let's look at what the question was asking us. The question says, how much money did she invest at 5%? Well, x is equal to the amount that she invested at 6%. So to find the amount that she invested at 5%, I'm going to take my x, which was 19,000, and subtract 8,000. And so at 5%, she will invest $11,000. Okay, so I know it looks like a lot. The table is just to help you organize your thoughts. You're still just doing I equals P times R times T. Okay, let's try one more example together. The Rileys have $27,000 to invest. They intend to invest part of the money in CDs at 8.5%. and the remainder in a savings account at 5%. If they wish to receive the same amount of income from each investment, how should they invest each? Okay, so notice this one's a little bit different. They don't tell me what my total interest is. They just say, hey, I want the two interest rates to be exactly the same. So that's going to change things a little bit. All right, so I always like to start by putting my interest rates in the table. So my first one was in CDs at 8.5%, so that's 0.085. And the rest of it was in a savings account at 5%. Okay, both of these are for 1 year, so both of our times are T. And then our amount that we invested is $27,000. That's our principal. Okay, so I know that one of them invested a number, and I don't know what that number is. And I know that my other one has to be 27,000 minus that number, so that those two numbers add up to 27,000, because that is my total investment. Okay, so now to get my interest, I'm going to do P times R times T. So I get 0.085x. And then again, I'm going to do T times R times T. So this is going to be 0.05 times 27,000 minus X. Okay, now this is where it's a little bit different from the previous problems. It says the investments have to be the same amount. So instead of taking this one and adding it up to a total amount of interest that we know, we are actually going to take these two I's, our two interests, and we're going to set them equal to each other because we want to make the same amount of money out of both of them. So 0.085x is equal to 0.05 times 27,000 minus X. All right, just like we did before, I'm going to distribute. And 0.05 times 27,000 is 1,350. And then minus 0.05x. Let's get our x's to one side of the equation. So I'm going to add 0.05x to both sides to get rid of that. And I get 0.135x is equal to 1,350. And then my last step is that algebra step, to divide. All right, so when I do this, I get x equals 10,000. Okay, so I am investing $10,000 at 8.5%. Okay, that's from up here. Just that's what x is equal to, 10,000. But then to find out how much I'm investing at 5%, I have to take the 27,000 and subtract the 10,000 that I'm already investing at 8.5%. So I'm going to invest $17,000 at 5%. Okay, so this is kind of a confusing section. We have to be able to use these tables and understand our I equals PRT. But as always, call us over if you need any help with the homework assignment.